We just witnessed maybe the most consequential game of the season with this Duke North Carolina game. I know that there's a lot of basketball going on still left to be played today. We're going to talk about that later on in the show. Got to let me be in my feels because we just watched two Titans within the 2026 NBA draft class between Cameron Boozer of Duke and Caleb Wilson of North Carolina. We're the night shift right now, and we're going to go ahead and get started with the show. Let's rock. We are live here on the No Ceilings NBA show, here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel. We're also on your podcast player of choice. And this is the night shift where us at No Ceilings, sometimes it's me, sometimes it's other members of the crew, where we get together live after just watching a show and talk about what we watched. We'd like to do these on Saturdays because, as you all know, the Saturday slate is just amazing this year, especially with how the fact that there's not a lot of like international players that are lobbying for our attention throughout the season. There's no more G League Ignite. The Overtime Elite is more of like a high school preparation type of organization now. It's all college basketball. These Saturdays are incredible. There's some great games that are still left to be played, but we're going to go ahead and go live now following this Duke North Carolina matchup. And this may have been the best game of the season. I'm trying not to be hyperbolous, if that's a word. But you got to excuse me. I'm in my feels. A Saturday night. We're gonna have a little bit of fun here on the show. There was a lot of hype coming into this game naturally, right? Because Duke, North Carolina, one of the most storied rivalries in all of sports, and this one actually like lives up to the billing. You know, these programs are incredibly close, and the number of prospects they bring in, the number of NCAA tournaments they've been in, the number of titles that they've won, and they are in the same state, right? So there's a lot riding on this, but there was an extra layer of excitement, an extra layer of hype building around this matchup. That's because this matchup featured Cameron Boozer, who, depending on who you talk to, the number one, the number two, maybe even the number three prospect on the majority of big boards. And then the poor North Carolina Tar Heels, poor UNC fans coming off of an excellent win capped off by a three-pointer by Seth Trimble. We'll get into the game here in a second. But the poor Tar Heels only have who might be considered for the fourth best prospect within the 2026 NBA draft class. Depending on who you ask, they might have Keaton Wagler over my man now. They might have Kingston Flemings over my man now. I wrote about Caleb Wilson and some of the issues, these so-called issues that people had with my guy over at NoCeilingsNBA.com. And each of those factors were addressed in a series, an article that I wrote about to be basically to doubt or to believe with Caleb Wilson. And I broke down some of the things that we're going to talk about what he did in this game, to include his shot, his handle, the touch, the feel, all of that. We're going to talk about that here in the show. But the poor North Carolina Tar Heels have Caleb Wilson, who, again, a lot of people liked fourth within this draft class, but now, maybe sixth, fifth on big boards. It's crazy now, but we know how the basketball community works. We are simple creatures. We try to make things more difficult than they need to be. We try to act more sophisticated and more philosophical than we actually are. We are simple creatures, and head-to-heads, this is where it's at. This is where legends are made. This is where big boards are altered, depending on how big or small a performance is from a player in a matchup like this. This is the stuff that NBA drafts are made of. Look, think about it. Look how many people were in attendance for Cam Boozer versus Caleb Wilson. The hype that Caleb Wilson had just thrust it upon himself, the pressure that he put on himself. Remember when North Carolina went up against the Kansas Jayhawks, and that we heard of the story about how Caleb was like, yeah, I was on the same team as Darren Peterson, and my guy, I never got the ball. I wanted to prove something. And in that game against the Kansas Jayhawks, Caleb Wilson had a fantastic game. Now the stories were is that, well, Duke didn't really recruit me all that hard. So that was the story that Caleb was telling himself. And oh my goodness, oh my goodness, did we get a performance in the first half where he finished with what, 17 points, hit a three-pointer, was getting to the free throw line. He was doing everything offensively. And it's not like the stuff that he was doing was easy either. Duke knew who the assignment was. Duke knew if they were able to take out one player, all the cards within this house would come crashing down. They knew this. And Duke went to Caleb, and Caleb has been doubled all season long. This is nothing new. If you go back to the Georgia Tech game, the recent Georgia Tech game that Caleb Wilson went against, he was making quick decisions out of the double team in that game. He knew how to handle pressure. This is nothing new for Caleb Wilson, but everybody just assumes that my guy is just an athlete, right? Oh my gosh, he leads the NCAA in dunks. This is somehow a bad thing that he can get to the most efficient shot in all of basketball, but he doesn't have touch. He doesn't have feel. He doesn't know what to do with the ball in his hands. And oh my gosh, he has laughable defense. These are things that I've been hearing about my guy, Caleb Wilson. It's funny, this laughable defense. So we'll get to that possession here in a second. But Caleb Wilson tonight finished with 23 points on 8 of 12 shooting, 1 of 2 from deep, 6 of 6 from the free throw line, had 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block. And my man was everywhere. This patented pull-up jumper, high release, this touch that somehow Caleb Wilson just doesn't have that people are wanting to overlook because my man is a dunk monster. This is the type of thing that Caleb has been doing all season. Some of us have been trying to tell you guys. I and Dirty Dancer in the chat, does he get hate? I guess Dirty Dancer, to your point, does he get hate? It depends on how you look at hate. If you perceive hate as top 5 pick, as if you look at, hey, he's a top 5 pick, that's a great thing. Sure. Okay. Like if that's how you want to evaluate it, that's fine. If you perceive hate as there's absolutely no way that he could have a conversation to be in the top 3, you might see a little bit of doubt on him. And of course, you got to get nitpicky. You have to pick apart these guys' game at the tippy top of the draft class. And that's where I think Caleb, a little bit more under a microscope than I would say Darren Peterson. I would say Cam Boozer. We'll address that in a second. I would say AJ DeBanza probably gets the same amount, to be perfectly honest. But the fact that some people are saying, hey, there's no way he can be in the top 3. Excuse me. This was in January. There's still several months of basketball to be played. Hello, are you kidding? And then the fact that people are like, well, maybe, I see this, 6'9", 6'10", uber talented, uber athletic forward who is showing signs of touch, who is showing signs of feel, who is showing signs of defense. But there's a couple of point guards that I think might be above him. Okay, sure. Like, I'm not here to knock what Kingston Flemings is doing. I'm not here to knock what Keaton Wagler is doing. But in Caleb, I promise you this, in Caleb's mind, he would look at that as hate. He's doing it on a game-by-game basis. He is taking any sort of slight that he can use personally. Therefore, as someone who is advocating and has been since early January that Caleb Wilson is a top 3 pick, I'm kind of in that spot too. There's a lot of things about his game that people are still picking apart, but he's showing it in droves, especially in this game. Matched up against Cam Boozer, who, again, depending on who you talk to, the number 1 draft pick. The defense has been something that a lot of people loved coming into the season. As the season has progressed, a lot of questions to be raised on the defensive end. Trust me, we're going to talk about that here tonight as well. But Caleb's ability just to be nonstop, the touch is starting to really show out. Caleb wasn't shooting threes. I get that. But you have to look at touch indicators. His far twos, his percentage from his far two has been good all season long. Watching the film and the level of difficulty that he hits on these post fades, there's clearly an indication of touch there. It's not surprising for me to see Caleb hitting 3-pointers. It's not surprising for me to see him passing the way that he did. He had a couple driving kicks in the first half that looked awesome. Caleb's been able to do things off of the bounce all season long. The grab and go with him, Giannis-esque. I'm not saying that he is Giannis. I'm just saying the grab and go stuff might remind some people of Giannis Antetokounmpo. There are some aspects of Caleb's game that, depending on who you talk to, will remind them of other highly touted Hall of Fame level forwards. I'm not going to say that he's Kevin Garnett, but other people have. Still, I'm all over the place. I'm in my feels. Deep breath, Steven. Caleb Wilson, monster game. If you had him top 3, like I did, like Corey Tolliba did over at No Ceilings, there's a few of us who have been here for a little while. You feel vindicated, right? You feel vindicated. And AJ DeBanza is going to play Houston here in a little bit. We're going to cover that game probably tomorrow. More on that in a little bit. But Caleb showed up, was awesome. Let's talk about the defense, the laughable defense that someone on Substack messaged me. And when I published my Caleb Wilson piece and said, hey, the offense has been good. The defense is laughable. It's abysmal. Did you see the way that my guy defended Cam Boozer? Did you see the way that my guy defended Cam Boozer? He had a ridiculous block shot where he rotated over to block Cam Boozer. By the way, this off-ball defense that a lot of people have picked apart, to be honest with you. A lot of people have picked apart the off-ball defense, rotating over to throw the ever-loving mess out of Cam Boozer's shot. He was in front of him, moved his feet, made shots difficult for Cam. A lot of the times when Caleb was against Cam didn't really score. And I see people in the chat, and I appreciate the questions that y'all are asking. Antoine Willis, if you're a GM, who are you drafting? I mean, I guess it would depend at the number. I guess it would depend on the team. Right now, I would probably say right now my board is Darren Peterson still at number 1, Cam Boozer at 2 for now, Caleb Wilson at 3, AJ DeBanza at 4. So that answers the Dirty Dancer question. Who did he pass out of your consensus top 3? Here's the thing. I'll put it to you like this. How jumbled this top 4 is, to me, it's just been Darren sitting alone at the top for a while. I did have AJ at 2, Caleb 3, Cam 4. After a couple of big-time matchups, yes, I do weigh in big-time matchups against, Texas Tech, Arizona, teams like that. I kept Caleb at 3, but I swapped AJ and Cam at 2 and 4. So then I switched it to Darren, Cam, Caleb, AJ. I don't think it's all that far for Cam and Caleb. And I know that people might say, oh my goodness, Steven, you're talking crazy because you're coming off the high of the game. Maybe I'm an emotional dude. Listen, I'm a draft analyst. I'm also a fan of basketball. Like, I'm a human with a beating heart. I bleed red blood just like everybody else. I love basketball. I'm still coming off a high of what I just watched. I'm feeling pretty good that I came into this game, Caleb at top 3. He looked really, really good tonight. A little emotional. I'll own up to that, and I'll fess up to that. I didn't touch my big board, though. I didn't fix anything based off of the game today. So practicing a little bit of patience. I'll look at it with a sober mind tomorrow. But Caleb's defense, he made Cam's life tough. Cam scoring really wasn't that much against Caleb tonight either, right? But let's talk about Cam, okay? Because Cam is still great. I'm not on here to go on a Cam bashing campaign, because I think that there's going to be a lot of that. He did not have a great first half. He did not have a great first half. He rebounded well. He still finished with more turnovers and assists tonight. Some of the passes that he was making were really bad. A lot of his cross court stuff was really bad. You throw cross court with Seth Trimble on the floor, you keep kind of playing with that fire, you will get burned. Trimble is going to come out and punish you in that free safety role. But he made some bad plays on the offensive end. He put up some tough shots too. I mean, his 3 was pretty much on point for most of the night, but he put up some tough shots. I think a lot of the time in this game that he thought he was going to foul bait a little bit. and he wasn't able to do that. He only shot 2 free throws tonight. So just to kind of let you know the type of game that Cam had, only 2 trips to the free throw line tonight. That's really not like Cam Boozer at all, right? First half, a little bit of a tough time. Came back in the second half. We were talking about this in the group chat, within the No Ceilings group chat. Cam, we had a feeling that he was going to make a good halftime adjustment. He was going to talk with his coaching staff, maybe look at a little bit of film and just understand like what he needed to do, at least offensively. You know, he was able to run in transition, get a couple of easy looks that way. He was able to drive and attack some of the smaller perimeter players. You know, Jaren Stevenson was on him. Hey, good luck, Jaren, right? Offensively, he was able to do a lot of good things. Dirty Dancer in the chat says Cam looks small versus Vasar. So it's interesting that you mentioned that because this was something that we were talking about in our group chat as well. That Cam looked good on offense in the second half. Defensively, you know, Pat Nyongba fouled out. So the Pat Nyongba fan club that's bolstering him being top 5, being top 10. I don't know what this game is going to do to his usage, his rates, his advanced statistics, anything like that. But I'll tell you, watching the game, this was not a good Pat Nyongba game. I don't know how this is going to impact his metrics. And he has a good statistical profile, which matters to a lot of people. Pat fouled out, which meant that you got to see a lot of Malik Brown in the front court playing defense. You got to see a lot of Cam Boozer playing the 5 tonight, unfortunately. I mean, Nick Kamini only played 4 minutes. It did not look good in those 4 minutes. I'll just put it to you like that. I could see why he only played 4 minutes. This game was almost too big for him. But Malik even playing, he ended up with 4 fouls. So he was 1 foul away of sitting right next to Pat Nyongba on the bench, which meant that Cam played a lot of 5. Now, for those who have Cam number 1, you probably still have a strong case for having Cam Boozer number 1. The defense, look, it was concerning. As soon as he was matched up with Vasar regularly, and this is to the Dirty Dancer comment that happened earlier, or that happened just a moment ago in the chat. There was several plays in a row where Vasar just got the ball down low on Cam and shot the ball literally over the top of him. Even against Caleb Wilson, right, who Cam has a strength advantage on, I would say, at least weight-wise, but height-wise, Caleb looked to be a little bit taller, definitely a lot longer and a lot more athletic, able to hang in the air a lot longer. Cam's defense, a little bit exposed tonight. I don't know how much of it is defensive schematics, like, do you not want him to foul out? He only had 2 fouls. Both of those came in the first half where he had to go and sit down for a little bit. I don't know how much his defense tonight maybe shown a light as an area of concern. If we could talk about Caleb Wilson's defense just a couple of weeks ago, I think July 29th is when I dropped my Caleb Wilson article, and there were a lot of comments made about the defense with Caleb, and that's why he can't be ranked so high. Au contraire, look at what we're learning from Cam Boozer. Now, very, very smart. He made a very good play towards the end of the game where Trimble was driving to go and take the lead towards the end of the game. Cam Boozer poked the ball out of his hands and forced a turnover because the ball bounced off of Trimble's thigh, went out of bounds. It felt like Duke might have an opportunity to ice the game in that moment. So very clutch defensive play from Cam Boozer. But if you zoom out, right, have this 100-yard kind of like zoom out eagle eye view on the game, Cam had a lot of possessions tonight where he was concerning on the defensive end. It's not to say that he cannot be a good defensive player. That's not to say that he is not a smart player. This is not to say that he is a poor athlete or any of the other stuff that you were going to see on the internet. This is to say that he has vulnerabilities. He is not a bulletproof prospect. And I think even those who have him number 1 or number 2 would tell you as much. I think those people would tell you that Cam is not a bulletproof prospect. But to talk about him in a way where he is light years above Caleb, especially on the defensive end. Like, I understand it. I just so happen to disagree. I could be wrong. I will raise my hand and tell you if I'm wrong. I just don't see this. I see the tools of Caleb. I see the motor of Caleb. I see how good a teammate he is. And if you don't care about any of this, just hit 10 seconds ahead on the YouTube. I'm gonna get a little coach speak here. So you can fast forward if you want. The character, the determination, the mindset of Caleb. This is not to say that Cam's is poor, but you cannot count out Caleb Wilson. This is why I put him top 3 on my board over a guy like AJ DeBansa, who a lot of people did have number 1, might even still have 2 or 3. And again, playing Houston tonight, he has an opportunity to prove himself against tough competition. But Cam Boozer, I still have him 2 on my board. I'm probably still gonna have him 2 on my board. I might wanna see a little bit more, right? It's a very important game, but at the end of the day, still one game. Can't get too high, can't get too low. Cam what I wanna say out of all of what I just said, Cam Boozer's still a very, very good player and showed it tonight. There's deficiencies in his game, just like there are Caleb Wilson, just like there are Darren Peterson, just like there are in AJ DeBansa, but he's still a very, very talented player. I am not if I do move Cam down, it's not because I look at him as a worse player. It's because I think that much more of Caleb. He's played up to be within that tier of competition. All right, so I've spent enough on those 2 prospects. Let's talk about the game at large. We already talked about how Pat Nyongba played just 16 minutes tonight because he fouled out because for whatever reason, I had a feeling about this game too, by the way. I was actually talking to my boss at work that North Carolina stood a chance because they do have size. I kind of foolishly assumed that Stevenson would play a larger part in this game. He didn't, he wasn't terrible, but there were some Jaron Stevenson moments. I'll put it to you like that. But with the height of North Carolina, I felt like it might neutralize what Duke brought to the table because a lot of times Duke being one of the larger teams in all of college basketball can just kind of pummel you, but they don't have good guard play. They really didn't have good guard play tonight. Caleb Foster might have had one of his best performances of the season. 9 points on 4 of 8 shooting, was 50% from the 3-point line, had 3 assists, and had 1 rebound. Outside of him, Isaiah Evans had 11 points, but very inefficient. 4 of 14, only 1 of 4 from deep. Only had 2 trips to the free throw line. Dame Sarr had himself a very nice game. Caden Boozer came off the bench, had 5 points. There were contributors for Duke throughout most of the game. If you want to look at the team who the star player really didn't have that much help, that would be North Carolina for the majority of the game. Caleb Wilson carried this team in the first half. In the second half, we started seeing more of Vasar. Vasar finished with 13 points on 6 of 9 shooting with 11 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 block. That came in the second half. Vasar really showed out in the second half. Maybe because Pat was on the bench, and you might look at that and say, see, Steven, this is why we think this highly of Pat Young, but I'd rather have the player that's on the floor for 35 minutes as opposed to 16. That's just me personally, right? Vasar finished really well. He was 1 of 2 from deep. He was all over the glass tonight. The rebounding, of course, they typically like to filter it to Henry Vasar. Very strong, very long, down to get the friction on, right? But Seth Trimble was a hero in a lot of ways because going back to the point I was making earlier about this team matchup, Duke very big. They funnel everything to the front court. Their front court even makes all the plays. Seth Trimble finished with 16 points, 5 of 7 shooting. His only three-pointer that he hit was that clutch three-pointer, which left 0.4 seconds on the shot clock to where the fans stormed the court. They ended up having to go back because there was 0.4 seconds left on the shot clock. But Seth Trimble's only three-pointer was the would-be game-winning three-pointer in the game, was 5 of 8 from the free throw line, 2 rebounds, 3 steals, and 1 block. He was everywhere defensively. He poured in the perfect amount of points to win this game tonight. Derek Dixon had some moments. He had 8 points, 3 of 8 shooting from the floor, 2 of 8 from deep. Those three-pointers were huge. 4 assists, which Did you know that Derek Dixon led the game in assists tonight? If you would have asked me who led the game in assists, I don't know how long it would have taken for me to get to Derek Dixon. And then if you would have asked who was second in assists, it would have been Caleb Foster. I don't think that I would have guessed those two names just going off of recall of the way that this game went. But Derek Dixon helped out with 8 points. Jaren Stevenson, very Jaren Stevenson game. There, he hit one good shot off of an offensive rebound from Henry Vasar, the kick out, who's wide open. That one went in. There were a couple of other shots that didn't go in, to include this weird kind of like mid-range push shot that he missed. Um, Malik Brown, I still kind of like him. If I'm a good team picking in the second round, I might just say, let's just pick up the guy who I feel is going to be a really good defender. I know that the shot's probably never going to be there, but I want to get a guy with a good NBA skill. I might draft Malik Brown. Kane Boozer with a nice game as well. 5 points on 2 of 4 shooting, 2 assists, 2 rebounds. What the game came down to was Caleb Wilson dominating the first half, contributing a little bit more in the second half. I think he had like 6 second half points, but the defense, he rose to the occasion. Again, there to the last play that Duke had, Cam Boozer went to attack Henry Vasar in the paint. What I found interesting was the fact that Cam had Vasar in the paint one-on-one. Caleb elected not to play off of his man to help out on Cam. Some people might look at that as a defensive lapse. I looked at it because if you look at the game, Duke had 10 offensive rebounds. They were +6 in offensive rebounds that game. I feel like Caleb likely stayed on his man, who I believe was Malik Brown, if I'm not mistaken. He stayed on his man while Cam went up to shoot over Henry because Henry had the height on Cam. He was at least going to make it a tough and challenging shot. It was. Boozer might have settled for a bad shot. He might have thought he was going to get fouled. He might have anticipated Caleb coming over. Caleb didn't do that. He stayed home. And Cam misses the shot. Caleb tips the ball out and away to, I forget who the guard was, but he tips the ball out and away for North Carolina to grab it, go across half court, call the timeout. And that's when the play, the drive and kick that got Seth Trimble, the wide open right side corner three-pointer for the win, but still left 0.4 seconds on the shot clock, despite the crowd coming out, clearing their seats and storming the floor. Caleb, little nuance thing. Wasn't a dunk, wasn't a three, wasn't a shot block. I don't even think he was credited with the rebound. Stayed home on his man, let Cam put up a tough shot over Vasar, tipped the ball out for North Carolina to gain possession, get across half court, call timeout for the game-winning shot. Not a statistical measurement. If you want to argue and say it's in the lineup data, sure, it might be in the lineup data somewhere. I don't understand how it works. But I loved the fact that Caleb was still active and aggressive, even though he wasn't shooting the ball, contributed to the win by being aggressive on the glass. Fantastic performance by him. Fantastic game all around from Duke and North Carolina. And I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I'm looking in the chat. A lot of people saying that game was electric. Hall and Packer, 2 prospects that I just don't get the hype from Dirty Dancer. And Dirty Dancer also says, days like these, I feel like visiting. I don't know what that is. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. But I guess I'm with you, Dirty Dancer. Whatever that means, I guess I'm with you. You're an OG here in the space. Let's talk about another game. Let's move on. This one not as exciting, not as electric, but still worth watching because there were NBA prospects in here. There were some games during this time slot that I could have picked that maybe I wished I would have, especially me being a Razorback guy, being a Darius Acuff guy. Today was a fun day to be a Darius Acuff guy on the internet, by the way. Over on X at Stephen G Hoops, a lot of conversations between me and some people who, let's just say, disagree with the fact that I have Darius Acuff as my top point guard. And I feel like I don't understand how people who could have 3 to 5 more point guards, not twos, not Keaton Wogglers, even though I kind of lumped him in because that's just what consensus is saying, and certainly not Darren Peterson. But I can understand 1 or 2 point guards being above Darius Acuff. 3 to 5, that's where you kind of lose me. But I'm not here to talk about Darius Acuff, even though I'm a Razorback fan and it's late on a Saturday night, and I'm the only one here, so no one can tell me what to do. I want to talk about Arizona and Oklahoma State. I I did not think that this game was going to be close coming in. I did not expect an almost 40-point blowout, however. I also watched this game because, Braden Burries is playing in this game. Koa Pete is playing in this game. Uh, Montius Krivas. I don't know why I still can't pronounce the first name, but I'm just going to continue to call him Krivas because people know who I'm talking about. He's playing in this game. Jaden Bradley's playing in this game. And Ivan Karchekov, I'm really starting to kind of like. He's probably a next year cat, literally Wildcat. There you go. I didn't mean to do that, but happy I did. Arizona has a very stacked team. And I wanted to watch this game because a lot of prospects within this team that I'm still trying to figure out. I feel like I get a good handle on Braid Burries. He's a top 10 prospect on my board. I believe I have him like 8th or ninth, something like that. Um, Outside of Burries, I still have a lot of questions. There's a big Krivas push to be a first rounder, at least a late first rounder if we're projecting returners and things like that. Koa Pete, here's a fun word that we like to use in the draft space, confounding. Koa Pete confounds me. He perplexes me. I'm vexed by him. 11 points, 4 of 12 shooting from the floor, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, no defensive metrics to speak of. Caleb, or excuse me, I have Caleb Wilson on my mind. So sorry about that. I have to, let's, all right. Caleb Wilson, I love you. Everyone knows this. Koa Pete, I can't help but get the feeling that this guy is just going to be a better pro than a college basketball player, which is frustrating for to be someone who is in the draft space, who puts out front-facing work, who writes words, who speaks words and records words to kind of help put out a perspective on a prospect and how I'm watching them, how I'm evaluating them, and how others are watching and evaluating him. I want to watch more Arizona because I want to get a firmer handle on Koa Pete, but it's kind of like the song from 38 Special, Hold On Loosely, but Don't Let Go. Because if you cling too tightly, you're going to lose control, right? That's how the lyrics go. I want to learn so much about Koa Pete, but it feels like the more that I watch him, the more confused that I get. And I feel like I'm clinging too tightly and I'm losing control on my prospect analysis of Koa Pete. Again, 33% from the floor. He had some fun putbacks in this game. Very good defensive possessions, even though he didn't record a single metric. He challenged the Cowboys, the Oklahoma State Cowboys. He challenged a bunch of shots that ended up being misses. So this is one of those things where if you're looking for stocks and percentages, not a good game for that. Maybe the lineup data. Shout out to the lineup data gang out there. There might be some good lineup data that supports Koa Pete and his defensive impact from this game. I'm still just so confused. I'm glad that he was above water in the assist to turnover ratio in this game. I didn't really feel it. I didn't really feel him. I just feel like he kind of goes in and out. And this might be kind of a built-in, no kidding Steven type of a thing because of how many prospects are on this team. But they have a starting five that consisted of 3 freshmen. So it feels like the opportunity would be there for the guy who is ranked the highest to be the most productive. It's ultimately leading to winning. Arizona, I don't know if you know this, but they have a pretty good win percentage this year. Look, he's strong. He can rebound. He can defend. Dirty Dancer in the chat says Koa Pete starting to take threes. Just a hard nosed winner. Yeah, this is where like the intangible stuff comes in. This is where the character stuff comes in. This is the thing that I like to say. He moves like an NBA player. Things come in. It's harder to project a player like Koa because to go back to something that Corey Tulaba says that I love that he says within the draft space. It's a man of faith, man of science aspect to Koa Pete. And I feel like it's probably like 70-30 man of faith versus man of science if you were high on Koa Pete, maybe even higher. I could be even lowballing it. I like to lowball percentages like that if you don't know me. It was very it was a very Koa Pete game. It feels like he gets up for big games, games like this, not so much. But let's talk about Braden Burries because I think that I saw his name in the chat. Yep, Dirty Dancer. Burries continues to be a beast. I've taken a liking to calling him Braden Blurries because of how efficient he is in transition and how much he likes to push the break. I'm a dad of 4, so my dad jokes are very strong. I like Braden Burries, man. He had 15 points on 7 of 11 shooting from the floor, missed his only 3-point attempt, was only 1 of 3 from the free throw line, had 8 rebounds, 0 assists to 2 turnovers, and 1 steal. Look, he is not a perfect prospect either. If you're looking for a perfect prospect, you're not going to find one in this draft class, if any. I think, Victor Wembanyama might have been the closest thing to a perfect prospect. But this is a very strong, deep, and talented draft class, which means that Koa Pete, listen, probably easily a top 10 dude in most draft classes. I'm not saying that the top of this draft class is one of the best ever, but the depth right now, I mean, my goodness, the fact that we have 4 guys, in my opinion, who could all compete for, let's say, a top 4 to 5 spot, maybe 6 names competing for that 4 to 5 spot. That's tough. That's a tough look for Koa Pete, especially when you're in the same draft class as Cam Boozer and Caleb Wilson that kind of play that same position. Dirty Dancer in the chat says he is an athletic and tenacious finisher, akin to a player like David Lee. I don't mind that. I really don't. I just can't shake the feeling that he's going to be a better pro than a college player. But back to Braden Burries, he kind of, if you can call a 15-point performance a comeback to earth game, then I'll take that from almost anybody. He was riding high on some big performances that we've seen against the BYUs of the world, stuff like that. A very studious, let's go with that, right? Because they're college kids and they all go to class. A very studious 15 points from Braden Burries tonight. I loved what I saw from him. Uh, Jaden Bradley, a guy who I'm starting to kind of warm up to as the second round prospect within this class. 13 points, 5 of 8 shooting, 3 of 4 from the free throw line. Let's see here. 4 assists to 1 turnover, 2 steals, and 1 rebound. Very fast. Loves the mid-range shot. Trusts in his shot a lot, even though he only had 2 3-pointers. It's just there's so many mouths to feed on this Arizona team. Not to mention guys like Anthony Del Orso, Toby Awaka, David Aristote, all coming off of the bench. You have an NBA rotation in Arizona, so it's going to be hard pressed for guys to get these 20-point performances on a ridiculous amount of work. Krivas had 10 points, 9 rebounds, 1 block. He was very big in this game. I want to watch more Arizona specifically for him, especially when they're not playing against the Oklahoma States of the world, because he's just a giant. Dirty Dancer in the chat said Mount Krivas. That's a very apt name for him because he knows how to use his size. He throws it around and is able to create shots. A very efficient 2 of 4 from the floor, 6 of 9 from the free throw line. So constantly applying pressure. He's a little bit of a ball mover. I wouldn't say that he's one of the best passing big men in this class. I would say he's probably in that second tier, but functional, a guy who you can put in an NBA rotation and trust to string along a play, particularly in, let's say, like a DHO set. Fine, okay, college defender. I'm fine with the second round grade on Krivas. I don't think I can get there in the first round. I'm really starting to like my top 30 names within this class, by the way. Anthony Roy, the only guy on Oklahoma State who I really felt at all. And he was only 3 of 10 from the 3-point line. He was the team's leading scorer with 10 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 3 turnovers. Just a very rough game for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. I don't really have much else to add for the Oklahoma State side of things. Now let's go to the last game that we're going to be talking about today, and I'll put out some news here in a second. I did tune in to the 12 o'clock kind of slate of games, and I picked Louisville versus Wake Forest. Now, of course, a lot of people who have been following the draft all season long probably know why I picked this game. If you're just kind of stumbling into the draft season because you don't like to tune in until like this February, March timeframe, I understand. But we're happy to have you. Thanks for tuning in and joining us. Louisville has this guy named Michael Brown Jr., who came into the season consensus top 4 or 5, might even give a push to be a top 3 prospect coming in. I wasn't there, and I understand that a lot of people believe in the touch from deep. I understand that the playmaking was and still is pretty ridiculous. I get that he's taller. A lot of speculation that he is around 6'5", incredible vision, even though very, very skinny, has hit this like kind of constantly ascending growth spurt that his body hasn't even allowed him to put on mass, which I get and I understand. Trying to be patient with Michael, particularly with him having, let's say, a what was it, a 9-game absence? Antoine Williams in the chat says, "You watching Houston BYU in a little bit?" Yeah, absolutely, and we're gonna probably cover that game tomorrow. Um, Michael is I'm trying to be patient with him, and I even wrote this as much on NoCeilingsNBA.com when we did our January roundtable. We picked who's the one player that you're gonna opt to be the most patient with. I picked Michael Brown Jr. because, listen, he had a great return game. Who I think it was against Virginia Tech, if I'm not mistaken. Great return game, but we saw this. We've already heard this song before. We've already read this book before. We've already watched this movie before. Jane Quaintance, he missed time, came back against St. John's. Great opening act for him in that game. But as the season progressed and his body continued to take on that physical demand of playing, games routinely, getting back into the swing of things physically, while also playing catch up with whatever's, systematic things that Kentucky was doing, trying to play catch up mentally as well. It didn't really work out. Re-injured, re-aggravated his knee. We might not see Jaden Quaintance play basketball for the rest of the season. So having seen this, seen this movie before, Michael Brown, his first game back, warming up with a back brace on. Now, even if he was 100%, I don't know why he would be warming up with a back brace on. But two, the optics of that, just the old man in me is like, I prefer my dynamic point guards to not be wearing back braces. That's a feeling that I had when I was watching him warm up. I opted to maintain patience because you can have a great opening game back from injury, but what is this, steady accumulation of physicality? How is that going to respond to a back? I understand backs and knees are different, but if they both hurt, they can't be a good thing. But what is the steady accumulation, this physical toll, the demand that your body is going to ask of you playing basketball, where your back's pretty involved playing the game of basketball. If you've never played, give it a go one time, and you'll see your back is heavily involved in a basketball game. I wanted to maintain patience. I'm still trying to maintain patience, but Michael had 12 points on 2 of 10 shooting from the floor, only 1 of 7 from deep, was 7 and 9 from the free throw line. Did have 8 assists to 4 turnovers. Quick math says that that's what, a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio in the game, 2 rebounds and a steal. He was the fourth leading scorer on his team. Connie Roos off the bench upped him by 1 point. Fourth leading scorer on tied for the most attempts of the game. So that's what we call inefficient in basketball. Everything feels difficult for Michael right now. It feels like he has to dribble a lot to get to his shots. The playmaking is there, the passing is there, the vision is there, the height of eye advantage, this natural gift that he has to be a good playmaker while also being very tall. It helps him. This is something that sets him apart, something you just cannot teach. Ridiculously gifted vision wise, length wise, can do some very nifty things passing the ball. I worry about the 3-point shot. This was something that we were promised coming into the season that we were going to see from him, In his return game, I believe he was 3 of 6 from the three-point line. I kind of jokingly stated it turns out he needed a back injury to fix his shot. He's still doing this weird kind of what I'm calling like a greater than sign where he's shooting and he's kind of like his head and his feet are moving forward, but the torso buttocks area is kind of sticking out and it doesn't look comfortable to shoot that way. I think the percentages kind of bear that out. He's still able to get to the he's still able to get to the paint, but a lot of times it's to collapse the defense and pass out. I don't think that he trusts his body fully yet, and this is me just speculating. If you want to get on to me for that, okay, that's fine. This is just I'm telling you how I'm watching the game and what my thoughts are and how my thoughts are going watching the game. I feel like he doesn't trust his body yet in the paint because he's still getting there, but he's doing a lot of passing. I don't think that he wants to contort a lot. I don't think that he wants to extend a lot. I certainly don't think that he wants to fall playing through contact, but he's still taking a lot of shots. 4 turnovers is half of 8, yes, but it's still, let's see here, led the game in turnovers. And again, you have the ball a lot, usage, volume. I get it. It's too many turnovers. You're not scoring. Your passing is really, really good. You're starting to sound like Neoklas Abdalos a little bit. And I know that that's a scary comparison because this is not that's we didn't expect those two to be near each other in rankings. But I'm telling you, the production, you're starting to see a little bit of Neoklas Abdalos type stuff with Michael. I think my comparison for him right now is LaMelo Ball, who's a very, very good player. I don't know if you draft that guy 5th overall in this draft class. Knowing about LaMelo what we know in this draft class, I don't know if you draft that guy 5th overall. Most other draft classes, yeah, probably. This draft class, especially at that position, when you got guys like Kingston Flemings, Darius Acuff, LeBaron Philon, Braden Burries, Keaton Wagler, Christian Anderson, Bennett Sturts, all kind of gunning for you. You, I know there's an injury. I know that he's got to like grow into his body and all this stuff. I'm kind of fading him a little bit, and it's games like this as to why. And I just want to shout out real quick. This is going to be a quicker show, and I'm actually liking this because there's some games I want to watch. Ju Caris, I love watching him play. He had 25 points, yes, on 21 shots, 6 of 7 from the free throw line, had 11 rebounds, 3 assists to 2 turnovers. I love watching Ju Caris play. Wake Forest, I'm sure is a fine program. I don't think they've done anything to deserve Ju Caris. I would like to see him play on a winning team where he doesn't have to put up 21 shots for this team to still lose by 8 points. I would like to see Ju Caris play with someone else who can either make him better or take pressure off of him, if not both. That's just something that I would like to see. Fantastic game from Ju Caris. I think he's a very, very good player. If he stayed in the draft, I would take him in the second round easily. All right, so I'm going to wrap here soon. Before I do, and I just want to say thank you everyone for watching. While you're here, hit that like button. If you are not a subscriber to No Ceilings yet, one, it's okay. We still love you. Please subscribe. We are over 21K on YouTube. Last I looked, we're marching forward to 25K and then to 50, and then you know how numbers work. Hit that subscribe button. So real quick, what I want to do is I'm going to break away from here. I want to watch Houston and BYU, and I want to watch some synergy film, and I want to see how Illinois looked against Michigan State. I haven't caught that game. Been hanging out with you guys. I love you guys. And then I want to break those games down tomorrow because typically the draft sickos, me and my co-host Jam Hines, we record on Sundays. We recorded on Friday with Bryce Simon. If you haven't seen that on YouTube, it's live. Had a very fun show. Bryce is the best. Go and watch that show. That's going to release on Monday. We're not doing a podcast on Sunday, so I might recap the Illinois Michigan State match, and then I'm certainly going to break down BYU, and they're playing someone good. Who is it? Houston. Yeah, there you go, Steven. I'm going to break those 2 games down. So stay tuned for that. But I want to thank you all so much for hanging out with me and talking through this. Biggest thing that I want y'all to take away from this stream is that Caleb Wilson, I'm not saying put him in your top 3. Just don't rule it out for me. please. Like, that's all I'm asking. I'm not asking for much. I'm emotional right now. I'm still not asking for much. Just be open to the fact that Caleb Wilson might be good enough to be in the top 3. Even if you agree with me, put him there. If not, I get it. I understand. But we'll catch up with you guys next time. I'm out. Much love, y'all.